Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. We're beginning a nice, beautiful, fresh semester today, calling it semester 2025.2. Today, we are on level 1, lesson 1. So for everyone who's formally enrolled in the class, you have a series of recorded whiteboards that I have on my Vimeo showcase that is your homework. And so most of the homeworks are about half an hour long. And for this particular class, there's 2 homeworks for you to go over, and it's worth it. And it will go over in more detail what I'm going to talk about here. But of course, for anybody who's not accessing those whiteboards, you're still going to comprehend what I have to share with you here. So let's start off with imagery, because this is really how I feel most comfortable talking with people in the world. And so that we're just going to go with my sharing my whole entire screen, but it's going to look crazy, but we'll get there. All right, so first of all, this part goes down. This part should also go up. So annoying sometimes. Just trying to press the buttons and make it work. Sorry that my email is showing there. Trying to just, again, clear my screen so we can get up to the good stuff. Okay, good. This is one of my earliest paintings, and I'm sharing it with you here very, very intentionally. Today's class is all about the chakras and the basic proportions that I work with in being able to share this information with you visually. So what we're dealing with are the architecture harmonics that uphold reality. This is a wonderful class foundation for you to focus on this early stuff at the beginning of this class, because when you master these concepts, you will have a great foundation for everything that we do going forward. So what are the concepts that you need to be able to master? The first is the sense that all of these shapes that I'm drawing with you and these empirical cosmic truths involve circles and spheres. Very few of the images that I draw and create involve straight lines. So begin to calibrate your expectation to the shape of the cosmic infrastructure, always involving either circles or spheres. That is what the true shape of reality is. Next up, let's begin with what a chakra is. So here we're going to return to this drawing. It's important because it's very accurate in its simplicity, showing the basic proportions of what the chakras are. Wait, I want to go out of this. I want to go to, no, I don't want to use the annotation. I want to do this. Here, let's do a little trip down memory lane. So we've got, this is one image over here. Let's look at what is a chakra. The definition of the word means a spinning wheel of energy. So first of all, in that first image that I showed to you, there's no image of a person or anthropomorphic form, but this is an image of your light body structure. This and some of these other paintings and drawings that I have for you are great and accurate as I can make it with, like simple drawing tools, depiction of all of these aspects of yourself. So this is a really important foundation truth to embody. You have your physical form. Here it is outlined in white. I call it the anthropomorphic form. It is the shape of one head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. And this is often what is identified with as the body and as the self. But you must comprehend that you have this larger energy field that both surrounds and interpenetrates your physicality form. Where I'm placing my cursor, you can see these skinny points of the vortices and how they align perfectly up and down this figure's spine. And they also align with crucial aspects of organs and anatomies in the physical structure of your somatic cellular body. So surrounds and interpenetrates your physicality structure. And this energy force field that I call the chakras is made of time. The information that I'm sharing with you right now is not my personal creation. There are some aspects of this curriculum that I've developed that are my own personal contribution, and that is largely about flying rainbow lasagna and the greater levels of freedom that happen when we vibrate the basic toroidal energy field or chakra shape into a higher dimension. But that's like saying that I wrote a poem in a language that was pre-existing. This is the language that is pre-existing. So what I'm really doing here in my job as a visionary artist is perceiving truth and then depicting it in the most accurate ways that I can. Sometimes I use tricks of the trade when it comes to being an artist in terms of being able to show volume, shape, and form, even in a flat two-dimensional drawing, or in the way that I use color in a painting with advancing and receding colors. We're going to do a little bit of color theory today. But please know that what I'm mostly trying to do is be very accurate so that what I portray to you, you comprehend is more than just my own personal whimsy or my own personal opinion about the world. This is really established truth. And I am like a math teacher, and this is very much like the beginning day of math class for the comprehension of the cosmos. 1 + 1 = 2. I did not make that up. But as we go up the scale of complexity from simple statements such as 1 + 1 = 2, and we get into greater levels of higher mathematical complexity, then we get into my contribution, which I'm holding it up in the thumbnail, but we'll do more of this where you can really see it later, the flying rainbow lasagna. Flying rainbow lasagna is like a math proof or higher advanced math that rests upon the foundation of all of this empirical truth that I'm sharing with you today. Okay, so I take credit for the things that I have innovated, but I am not the ultimate innovator of this system. This is something that pre-exists me as Aurora. Or another way of saying it is divine intelligence, the super genius known as God, the divine intelligent one, created all of this. And so only if I expand my identity to being God, the super intelligent, divine, creative one, then I can say I did this. But like you, I'm on a journey of self-remembrance. So in the totality state of exalted consciousness, yes, I created this. In my state as Aurora, a waveform presence, and the innovative artist who I am, I perceive this. It is pre-existing. And then I added something to it in my own artistry. So it's like saying I didn't invent musicality and I didn't invent musical instruments, but I did write a song within the concept of music. So let's move to a few other depictions of this truth, because there's different things that I emphasize in different pictures. For example, this one that has black background and is done as like a scratch board, like an etch board. You can see this is a vortex at the top, and then this is a vortex at the bottom, and they meet in the middle. And this large vortex is so large that it goes all the way up above the person's head and all the way below their feet. It encompasses the totality of their physical cellular presence. And that large vortex structure in red or magenta represents the physical world. And that is accurate in this drawing. In this drawing over here, which has become very iconic, you can see that I did some tricks of the trade. This vortex comes up above the figure's head, but then this vortex does not go all the way below its feet. And I did that because I had to fit the figures into a larger pattern work of design in my painting. So there are some aspects of accuracy in this painting and some aspects of artistic creative license. And I have to make that clear to you. So let's show you another depiction of the same thing. This is your energetic anatomy. Here you can see at the center, there is a human figure outlined in black. And then you can see very, very accurately in this one, 4 vortexes. So now I don't want you to be confused, because sometimes I will show the chakras as if there are only 2 vortexes, like this one where I'm wiggling my cursor up here and this one down here, and that is accurate. And then you can also see these giant circles here, giant circle here and giant circle here. This is a cross section of a torus, and a torus is a donut. And the toroidal structure, so anytime I say donut, torus, or toroid, I am talking about the same thing. and it is a foundation structure of cosmic truth. It's in your body. It's down to the molecular and atomic level. It is at the level of a planet and also of a star, even the massive level of a black hole and a galaxy. All of these structures are shaped like toroids or toruses or tori. These are all vocabulary words that you'll hear a lot in this class. So let's see, can I get the annotation? I can. Here, I'm going to make a white dot. That is like the center of the torus, right? And then over here, you've got, that would be cake of the donut, where I just made that scribble. That's not empty. There's cake there. And there's cake over here also. And this is a donut that's cut in half. So you see a cross section. And what you really have is a whirling field of energy that goes around in this direction. So it's a tunnel. All of this is made out of time. All of this is dynamic, not static. So this figure here in the center resides within a big, giant donut-shaped energy force field that is made out of both swirling energy that swirls around like this, energy that also swirls around like this, and energy that swirls around like this. You're like, Aurora, it's the first day of class. We're already confused. I'm like, I know. Good job getting confused, everyone. Don't worry. I'll go further and then you'll comprehend it. So moving on, we'll show you some more pictures and you'll start to get it. So this is a good simplification over here. This is a close-up of one of my earliest pieces. And I did this very, very intentionally with no human figures in it. It's almost cartoonish in its simplicity, just to be able to depict to you the basics of what nested chakras are. So chakras are wheels of energy. They are made of time. They are made of possibilities and probabilities. They emanate from the sun and the stars. They emanate as light that is optical light that we can see, and also light that would be considered esoteric light of consciousness, because it is not something that we can perceive with our five senses, but we can perceive it with our inner eye, which is our indigo chakra or higher senses. And it's really important and crucial for you to know that that is not something that is scientifically, objective, materialistically described in your world yet, but it will be one day. So let's talk about this. There was a time before microbes were perceived in your world. Microbes couldn't be perceived until humans had invented glass lenses that you could use to make magnifying glasses and then eventually microscopes. And once those lenses and microscope apparatuses were created, humans could see into the microbial realm, the microscopic realm, and be able to see and validate the world of life that has been there the whole entire time. Humans in this moment of objective materialism on Earth's surface have not yet invented their version of quote unquote the microscope to be able to perceive energy that is at this level. This is light, but it is light in the form of time. Like I said, mathematical probabilities and possibilities. These are potential timeline structures and narratives that are of stories of things that can happen in the world. But for right now, humans don't have like a time scope that you can use to look at time. And so therefore it is less validated in the world of scientific expression and exploration and description, because it is not described by the five senses of your physical world. And you haven't created an apparatus yet that you can see beyond the five senses. So please know that this exists. I perceive it through my intuition, through my tendril of attention, through my inner eye, through my higher senses. That is how I know that this stuff exists. And as a brief fun anecdote, when I first came here, I didn't know if anyone else knew that this stuff existed. I came here as Aurora knowing what this stuff is, knowing what this all looks like, and being kind of like, is there anybody out there? Is there anybody that knows about this stuff? And it wasn't until I saw the work of the artist who's named Alex Gray that I was like, okay, at least one person in this world knows what this is and is seeing something similar. And of course, it's not a complete endorsement of the man. He is like, a human being with all the troubles and frailties of being a human being. And his artwork isn't perfect. It's actually not as anatomically accurate as mine, and at least there is some truth there. And so it allowed me to say, like, imagine you have seen a landscape. Like when we look at this human figure and these chakras here, it's how I see a human person. And it's like saying there's, a landscape, a description that we can agree upon of something that looks a certain way, a formfulness. But if no one else had ever seen it, then you're like, I think I'm the only person who's ever seen this. Then imagine if you saw another painting that was a landscape of the same mountain, but from a slightly different view. And you'd be like, well, look, the mountain does exist. I knew it existed. I painted the landscape. Someone else visited that mountain as well. Someone else saw that landscape. So Alex Gray, I think, is valid artist in that he has certainly seen this world and visited the same inner landscape. He does a lot with psychedelics and I do not. And so that's also different between us. But there was a good validation there. And I was like, okay, like there's some hope because I can, see that someone else has learned about these things too. And initially, everything that I did in my paintings and my drawings was for being able to share this truth with humanity. I didn't speak very much with my words. Now I'm much more articulate, and I'm always gratified when people appreciate how I speak. I've had to work a lot. It's just like muscles that I had to work on to become strong enough with my muscles. I had to work a lot on my verbal muscles and my ability to express myself. So yeah, I did not come here with a very good vocabulary. I did not come here with very good linguistic self-expression. And I used to even have a very funny middle of the night community access TV show back in Woodstock called Planet Aurora, even though I'm not from a planet, but I called it Planet Aurora as if I was broadcasting from my home world, where I would just try to talk in the middle of the night about these different concepts and find words for what I was trying to express to people. And it took me a long time. That was my very early efforts at becoming articulate. And of course, that was like 15 years ago. So it's taken me a long time, but I've learned how to be articulate with words. But I've always been very articulate with drawing and with shapes. And so I came here as soon as I was here as Aurora with all of these ideas and immediately got sketchbooks and immediately started to express them through visual sharing. So this is my most comfortable way of being able to speak. This is a very early piece, actually. It's from like 2007 or so. So I did that when I was like 6 as a walk-in, all right, like a first grader. And this is very accurate in terms of showing the scale of how big the red chakra is in comparison to the physical anthropomorphic form. So let's talk about the colors and what each of these colors represents. And let's also talk about the orientation, because you can see here, I don't know if I can get the annotation to come up no, maybe not. Well, we'll see. I'll just use my cursor and I'll wiggle. Some of these chakras or spinning wheels of energy are oriented in what I would say is horizontal. Like these guys that are right here where I'm wiggling my cursor are horizontal. Orange, yellow, green, blue, and indigo all are lined up in the same way that I would say like the buttons of your shirt are lined up. They are horizontal. But the red and the violet are aligned vertically. And you can even see, I really emphasized it in this painting, the violet chakra in its vertical orientation, the way that it is hovering above the head. It's what is known in historic art and religious art as a halo. That is the origin of where those artists got the idea of a halo. Halos are represented for angelic or otherworldly creatures or saintly advanced individuals. And that is what this chakra represents. The violet chakra is literally the highest note in the human octave. It is the fastest part of your time body. It is the part of you that is most divinely connected. and it is a very, very special place on your body. But it is not only for selected people, it is for you. Really, the intention of this class, why I call it Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, is because each one of you is a full spectrum human, and that you should claim the totality of your being, from your red physicality and your cellular structure and your dense formfulness in matter, all the way up through these other successively less dense and more ephemeral layers, until you get all the way up to the highest layer, which would be considered your angelic or your divine connection. And you're all of that, okay? So the red chakra and the violet chakra represent two bookends that are bracketing a selection of frequencies that we call human. This whole entire apparatus, I'll say it many times in class, is according to the acronym Roy G. Biv. So let's say it together. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. This is the conception of what the rainbow is. And each one of these layers has a color and an association. So let's start by talking about red, the color. And I hope in all of my drawings you can see that the red that I choose is not the red of like a fire hydrant or a fire engine, but people in different communities have different fire services. So here in my town, actually, some of our fire trucks are yellow, but if you have, stop signs in my neighborhood are red. They're a very bright red. They are the red of like a cardinal's feather or a very, very bright red strawberry. And the red that I use in my paintings is more of a magenta. And that means that it is moving slightly towards purple. It's not moving towards orange. It's a slightly cooler red. And I use that because, first of all, that's the color that I see in my own mind when I see these colors. And then also, I recognize that when I'm sharing with you here, I am sharing from the level of pristine color mixing, which is mixing with pure light, not with paint. So now we're in not only art history class right now, we're in color theory class, and we're in the color theory aspect of color mixing. So when you're an artist, you have to learn this, that if you mix all of the paints in your paint palette together, what you get is like a brownish, blackish, grayish muck. It doesn't look very nice at all. And that's because that is subtractive color mixing. When you're working with pigments, what you're really working with is blocking light out. The little tiny pieces of pigment color that are in the paints block some color frequencies out, and only some color frequencies emerge. But when you're working with pure light, it's more like if you had like stage theater lightings of different colors, how that comes together, or printing with transparent inks, which is how old-fashioned newspapers and comic books are made. They are printed with translucent inks that do what is called additive color mixing, where all of the layers layer on top of each other and they remain translucent, and they do not harm and interfere with the expression of the other colors. When you do additive color mixing, all of the colors from red all the way up through violet add up to white light. Instead of creating a blackish, brownish, yucky poo-poo color, when you add up all of the colors of pure light, you get white. And that is a profound truth. That white light is the primary ray of consciousness that emerges from the sun or the stars, which are these primary origins of light in our world. And they emerge with a color recipe. When that light is broken up into its constituent elements, we find that there's a recipe or a proportion of light. In exactly the same way that if you were going to make a cake, you have a recipe, and there's a certain critical measurement of each ingredient to have the successful outcome of cake, instead of just like gross ingredients slopped together instead of slop. If you want cake instead of slop, you have to measure. Same thing with light. Here in this drawing, it's a relatively accurate drawing. You can see these proportions. We have a lot of this magenta pinkish red. That is actually the majority of what you see in this light body apparatus of each one of us. That would be analogous to flour in cake. It's the basis of what the cake batter is going to be made out of. The most of what you're going to find in you is physical stuff. In terms of the proportions going forward, you're going to have less orange. In fact, you're always going to have half the amount of orange that you have as red. And then going forward from that, we have yellow. You're always going to have 1/3 of the amount of yellow as you do red. Green, you're always going to have 1/4 the amount of the red. Light blue, you will always have 1/5 the amount of the red. Dark blue, you will have 1/6 the amount of red. And violet, you will have 1/7 the amount of red. So let's see, can I get the annotation here? Because that would sure help my life a lot. No, annotation, wait, but that didn't help me. Because I want to go back to here. Oh my goodness. No, okay, well, since the world is not really helping me and I'm like feeling stress, I didn't really want to change the see, okay, I didn't want to change the image. I just wanted to be able to draw, and now I can't actually draw, but now I can change the image, but now I can't draw. Now I can change the image and I can draw. This is like tough stuff, but the thing is not actually on my screen, but let's work with it anyway. First, let's start off with red. I'll use white in order to say all these things, so that way you can not be too confused. This circle, all right, this measurement for how big the red circle is, in all of my paintings and drawings, I make that 12. Why do I make that 12? The answer is it is totally random and arbitrary. I simply have decided to make the largest unit of my proportional measurement system 12. A lot of this is because I learned about measurements from being a custom framer, from working with 12 inches in a foot, and the sense of regularity of, a foot and 12 inches throughout many of the measurements that are here in our world. I also chose 12 as the primary measurement or the primary unit because it is easy for me to subdivide that into whole numbers, and you'll see where I'm coming from. But basically, you could start off with this number here. It doesn't have to be 12. It could be 100. It could be 22,000. It could be anything. But once you start to subdivide that number, then you might get into inconvenient and uncomfortable fractions. And so I chose 12 because it's one way that I can have comfortable fractions, because that is the equivalent of 1. Let's write a 1 over here. So now orange is going to be 1/2. And I'm going to draw this over here. So you can see orange is literally half the size of red. What is 12 divided in half, everyone? Class, what is 12 divided in half? You know this. It's easy. Good job. 6. It's hard for me to draw with this pen. Got it. So that's 1/2. Let's go even further. It's very hard for me to draw with this pen. All right, so that was orange. Let's do yellow. Yellow is going to be 1/3. What is 1/3 of 12, everyone? That's going to be 4. 4 inches. Look at all these nice whole numbers. 12, 6, 4. These are nice, comfortable whole numbers. Let's go into green. Green is going to be 1/4 the size of the red chakra. Let's write 1/4 over here. 1/4. So it's 12 divided by 4. You're like, that's so easy, Aurora. That's 3. Good job, 3. Let's go into, this one's going to be a little bit more challenging for you. The light blue. Light blue is going to be 1/5. What's 1/5 of 12? And you're like, well, Aurora, now you're going to make us do fractions. Exactly. It's going to come out to around 2.7. So we'll put 2.7 over here. All right. Can't really see that, but that's 7. 2.7. Now let's do an easy one. After you just had to do scary fraction, now let's do an easy one. This is 1/6. What is 1/6 of 12? So class, what is 12 divided by 6? Just do it. It's easy. It's 2. The answer is 2. Nice whole numbers, 2. Indigo is always going to be a 2 in all of my paintings, even though that looks like a 1, that's supposed to be a 2. I can't draw. It's very hard. And then the last one is violet. Violet is going to be 1/7 the size of the red chakra, okay? And what is 12 divided by 7? You're like, Aurora, I hate this already. There's going to be more fractions. There's going to be more fractions. Let's deal with it. 12 divided by 7. It ends up being about 1.68. And you're like, 1.68. You know, that number kind of sounds like something. Have I heard of 1.68 before? And the answer, my friends, is yes. There's a proportion that is known as phi. See if I can make my pen work over here. P. Oh, I cannot. The answer is no, I cannot. Try again. P-H-I. Phi. Phi for Phidias. Phidias was from ancient Greece and developed this amazing proportion of 1 to 1.68. And that proportion is a very important proportion that is in a lot of ancient architecture, like the Parthenon and a couple of other really famous buildings. And it's also in your body, like the proportion of your smallest finger digit to your larger finger bone digit, or the proportion of your calf to your thigh, or the proportion of your smaller canine tooth to your front larger tooth. These are the proportions of 1 to 1.68. And the proportion is so profoundly evident in nature that you can find that proportion in all sorts of different places. Organisms that conform to that proportion have greater levels of health and vitality. And once again, we immortalize this wonderful architect from a long time ago, Phidias, by naming that proportion phi. So the 1.68, that violet, we experience as the violet chakra within this proportional system, works very nicely in with the proportions of nature. And what I just did for you was to basically teach you the harmonic language of the cosmos. Now, again, if you wanted to, you could make 12 the unit 1. And then the unit for orange would be 1/2. And then the unit for, yellow would be 1/3, 0.333 repeating. Like, you get into these crazy fractions that I'm trying to avoid as much as I can in my tactile expressions of what I'm doing. So I figured this out a long time ago, and I figured out that I only had to work with, 2 uncomfortable fractions, 2.7 and 1.68, in order to be able to make my drawings. And so that's what I have stuck with. And when you look around my wonderful studio, all of these paintings have that as their proportions. Now I'll take you on a little art journey here. Art journey. Well, wait, because I know I've got all these crazy proportions on here. Can I clear out the proportions? I don't know how to do that. I don't know. I'm scared and I don't know how to clear all of this stuff out. So sorry that you've got proportions in the way, but let's just do a little art journey. So we've got that's this painting called Children of True Humanity. Here's a close-up. All of these, the big giant red circle is 12 and the smaller orange circle is 6, all the way down to this violet circle, which is 1.68. Same thing with this. Amazing, beautiful painting. Same thing. Here's a close-up of that painting. Close-up of that painting. Same thing with this. This one is a glass painting that I always tell you this class died a horrible death. Oh, that's why I don't paint on glass anymore. Yes, it broke into a million pieces, but at least I still have a picture of it. And then even this painting, which is known as Merkaba Chakra, has those same patterns within it. And here's a good close-up. Oh, it's such a good close-up. Let's move it so you can really see it. Because you can see each one of these vortex, 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 vortex. You can see how they all come together, nested vortices. And then this one, which is Merkaba Chakra 2, which is basically both the vertical and the horizontal chakras in there. And this center of complexity, which is so beautiful and complex and very, very carefully drawn and painted. And even into, I said I don't have straight lines in my paintings, but this is a beautiful painting that each one of these raised dimensional dots is a circle. And it, of course, it makes up the Merkaba shape of the star tetrahedron shape around this. It's not straight lines, but it does read as straight lines when you see my work. So, but you have to have the light come across it in just the right way. Okay, so wait. But that was a lot. That was a lot for you. Your brains have moderately liquefied. Kimber says, are Fibonacci numbers patterns part of our human chakra anatomy? So beautiful question and very timely to what I'm trying to share with you here. So let me hydrate and then we'll talk about Mr. Fibonacci. Fibonacci lived in like the time in Europe coming out of the Dark Ages, but not quite in the Enlightenment. It was a time when Europe had not yet fully comprehended numbers and was not fully numerically literate. They did not have the number 0. In Europe, mostly numbers had been used for normal things like counting stuff that exists, like sacks of grain or oranges. And very rarely do people have to count 0, the empty set, because you don't usually count up the nothings that you don't have, right? So the number 0 actually came from what would be the Middle East or the Far East. And that's why the numbers that we use are known as Arabic or Aramaic numerals. That's where they actually originate from, as opposed to Roman numerals, which you're familiar with. We have a fly in here. You know, the Roman numerals, like if you see that in a formal stamping of a coin, to stamp the date. The Roman numerals were very, very good at being able to do something like talk about a day or an amount of time or something that was part of the 5 senses realm. But again, we didn't have a 0. And mathematical computation with Roman numerals was almost impossible. It's not made for computation, it's really made for counting. All right. So within that context, along comes Mr. Fibonacci. And wait, before we get into him, we have to say hi to Cheeky. Here's Cheeky. Everyone, good job. Because I know math is hard, but dogs are cute. So here's a cute dog for you. Okay, now back to doing math, which is hard. Mr. Fibonacci traveled to places like Egypt, and there he learned about the number 0 and these different augmentations of math powers that are possible through the use of 0 and through computational exercises. And he got very excited about that, and he brought that information back to Europe. Europe started to embrace the number 0, which at first they thought was witchcraft, as they were very, very superstitious at that time in history. At first they thought, what is this witchcraft? Then they liked it eventually because the bankers of the time had been working with an abacus to do their computations and to be able to determine lending and how much they would receive back when they lend someone some money. And lending was a big thing. Money lending was a big thing back then. And they realized that they could get more money back if they calculated using zeros to be able to determine the fractions and multiplied exponents that are required in receiving back money when you lend it out to someone. and they got more money back when they did their math more accurately. But the people that they were doing the math for did not comprehend it, which is why they were like, hey, like, how come I owe you this much money? And he's like, look, clearly I do the math and you owe me this much money. And they're like, we don't like that. So that was the kind of context of where what that all came from. Okay. But Fibonacci was not about banking and money lending, but he started to use those same computational acrobatics to explore the natural world. And he looked at something like rabbits. You have one rabbit, and then you add another rabbit, and you have two rabbits. What happens to those rabbits? They make babies, and they make babies, and then their babies make babies, and their babies make more babies. And he started to be able to use these numeric acrobatics to describe behaviors of things in the natural world. So this was a symbolic numeric structure to describe behaviors in the physical observable world. And there was some benefit to that, but it is not 100% accurate. So the Fibonacci sequence, which is basically when you add up the earlier numbers in a number line. So you have 1, and you have 1, and 1 plus 1 equals 2. And 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 2 plus 3 equals 5, and 3 plus 5 equals 8. This type of beautiful exponential sequence that does reflect aspects of truth in nature, but it is not 100% accurate. It creates an accuracy line, like if my arm represents the line of supreme truth, and it does, all right, this represents supreme truth. Fibonacci's algorithm sometimes goes up above supreme truth, but then sometimes it dips below supreme truth, then dips above and below. And what it does, it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, until it keeps on going up, down, but it just goes up, down a tiny amount. And that is the close that it gets to ultimate supreme truth. So it is an algorithm that does represent some aspect of truthfulness, but only in an oscillative form, like by going up above and down below it, not representing it directly, but the form that is truthful, that it represents directly, is the proportion known as phi. My line of absolute truth is 1 to 1.68. 1 to 1.68. That's this baseline of truth in the world. And there's a reason for that, because organisms that conform to that proportion are healthier. There's a reason. So I did this in the thumbnail, but it wasn't enough. So this digit to this digit, this bone to this bone, 1 to 1.68. This bone to this bone, 1 to 1.68. This bone to this bone, 1 to 1.68. This tooth to this tooth, 1 to 1.68. It is all over your body. And again, the more the organism conforms to those basic proportions, the more you are considered healthy and alive. And this is why the ancient architect Phidias wove those proportions into some of these giant marble columnar structures that are still somewhat standing today, because it has a great deal of not only beauty, but architectural strength. So there's a great coming together between what is beautiful and what is functional in nature. And when I wear and create these harmonic structures in my paintings, what I'm trying to portray to you is that time has a structure. So the things that I was just talking to you was about rabbits having babies in the world, or the center of a sunflower seed, array in a flower, or the measurements of your own hands and bones in your own skeleton, and so much more. When those parts of your body conform to these proportions, you're like, oh, I'm healthy and alive. Yes. But let's talk about time, because time has a shape, and it is a non-arbitrary shape. And the more that you conform to these correct patterns in time, the greater levels of longevity you will have. You will live longer. So this is class number 1 of my curriculum. And these are some basic truths that will be true throughout the entire semester and all the advanced work that we do. The first thing is many teachers talk about chakras, and this is ancient knowledge that comes to us by way of the antediluvian sophisticated worldwide culture that we know as Atlantis. Ancient, concurrent, catastrophic, or, in health, however you would like to think of Atlantis. But this is something that is known deep inside of true human culture for a very long amount of time. All right. But that true human culture was fragmented, and vestigial traces of its extremely complex, elevated knowledge were held in trust via various different cultures throughout our world. So the Hindu Empire had a lot of this information about the chakras, and same thing with the same area of the world, the Buddhist Empire. But the chakras are more and different than the way that they are portrayed in the Hindu Buddhist culture. Sometimes in those Chinese medicine, anatomical drawings and other things, they're portrayed as either like a small symbol or a glowing ball of light that are in different areas of the body. They've got some of it right, but not all of it right. Again, partial transmission of truth. So I am here to give you the real recipe and make sure that you are fully informed so that you can be a cosmic citizen and be in charge of your own body. So the parts that this vestigial knowledge got correct are the colors, beginning with red, and red begins here at the lower octave, the base of your spine or the base of your pelvis, going all the way up your body through the rainbow to violet. That is correct. And also the sense of each one of these colors having a focus, like a vertex or a skinny point on the body. That is accurate. But other than that, they didn't get a lot of other things accurate. And then there's a lot of misprojection on top of it. So not a perfect system, but some truthfulness there. So I'm here to just give you the ultimate in truthfulness. You have 7 main chakras on the body. So the word chakra comes from that Hindu empire. It's a Sanskrit word that means spinning wheel. And chakras, when I view them and when I comprehend them with my inner eye, with my higher faculties, when I look at them with my time mind, right? I don't see just a glowing ball. I see a spinning vortex, actually a series of complex spinning vortices, and they do remind me of wheels. So I'm going to hold up this sculpture a lot, even though I know it's broken. You're like, Aurora, I'm sad. I'm sad looking at this broken sculpture. I mean, because this part's broken, this part's broken. I know, I'm very sorry. I'll have to make a new or better one. But I hold it up because it's pretty accurate as to what these wheels look like, okay? So you can see, first of all, I have 4 vortices. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they all have skinny points that point to the center, and they all converge at the center. That center is a really critical point of both your energetic anatomy in your own body, your consciousness presence, and your connection to larger time structures. That convergence point is singularity, and it is also known as the 0th dimension. Singularity, as I speak about it, is totally separate and distinct from the word that is known in the scientific community here as the transhumanist singularity. And I've always been very, very clear about that. The transhumanist singularity is the descriptive moment of human mind consciousness melding with machine consciousness. And it is more of a science fiction or projected expectation of something that would happen one day due to technological advancements, but it is not necessarily something that is inevitable, and it's certainly not something that I promote in any way. No, I promote you being in organic consciousness and that you have everything that you need in your birthday suit, what you came here with, the miracle of your physicality, body presence, and that is not necessary to meld your consciousness with machine in any way. So that's, pretty much we can set that aside for the rest of the semester. You guys will always know Aurora does not equal transhumanism. And just like, right, I can see you writing that in your notes, like Aurora, no robot. Good. But the singularity, as I speak about it here, and we'll go over a whole teaching about this, but let's just mention it for today. It is single by its nature. There is only one singularity in the entirety of existence, and it exists as a puckering or a gathering of the fabric of space-time that is present in your own body of space-time. And it's present inside of you, it's present in the sun, it's present at a microscopic level inside of an atom, it's present in the warpage of the fabric of space-time as miniature gravitational wells are creating molecular chemistry bonding and unbonding. And that's what, for anyone who did my Path of Light class, thank you for doing the heavy lifting. Thank you for your beautiful participation. And we talked a lot about the comfy couches, comfy chairs, that the warpage of the fabric of space-time creates the molecular bonding. So this pinching of the fabric of space-time is a very, very crucial concept to master. And I don't know if any one of us can even master the concept of singularity because it is so out there. Like literally, if you ever can't sleep at night, or if you're laying in your bathtub and you want to think deep thoughts or whatever, walking on the beach, just try to think about the singularity. It is mind-liquefyingly complex. There's literally only one of it. That's why we call it singularity. And yet it exists in a multiplicity of perceived places. But those places aren't different places. They're actually all overlapping. So when I draw the chakras for you, I will draw it as if you have 7 of these. Like you have a one here and 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 even one up here. And that's what all of my paintings are. I am drawing for you the singularity and the nested chakra shape as if it is deconstructed. So like when I show you that glass painting and it looks like a tall, long thing, I did that so that way you can kind of see like what the heck is going on here. Because when everything is overlapping on top of each other, it makes it very difficult for me to do my job as an artist. I need to hydrate. So I can draw these very complex diagrams where there's lines over on top, on top, on top. But then when you look at it as the viewer, you're like, what is this spaghetti? Like, I can't comprehend what is going on here. It's a little bit too much. So I make artistic and educational choices about what I emphasize in my diagrams, like how many lines I'm going to put in, how much I'm going to show something, and in what way I'm going to show it. So please know in a lot of the diagrams that I'm teaching you, you have to use some of your own mental energy to recognize it can be literal. Like if I show you something that is deconstructed, it's like saying we dissected this apart and I'm showing you the things that are the individual organs, but you know that all these organs come together and that they all act as one coherent whole thing. And that's the truth of your body of light, okay? So the 2 vortexes, you can imagine like you're starting with a beach ball that is round and spherical. And then God takes God's fingers and starts to kind of like push the beach ball in together like this. And it makes 2 vortexes that are skinny points that meet in the middle. And that middle point is the 0 point. And that middle point is singularity. And then you have these larger, flanges or expansions that go out like that. That is shaped exactly like wheel and axle. And the word chakra comes from ancient Sanskrit. It actually comes from a word that means like 2 spinning wheels, like wheels on a chariot. And they used to have these chariots that's like, 2 tires, 1 axle, and you sit on top of there, and then you would have like, horses in front of you. It was a way of going across, vast distances and also going into battle. This is important stuff symbolically, because the charioteer was considered to be the victor. When you had conquered a land, you sent your charioteer to ride across that land. And so you can imagine he's like on his chariot and he's like whipping the horses and going like, get going, horses, get going. And, like going like this with the reins and going like wild and the wind is blowing through his hair or her hair. And then you can go all the way many, many, many miles without being stopped by anyone. That represents victory in the ancient world that this word comes from. It represents conquering of lands. When you are a charioteer, or when your chakras are fully engaged and they are moving at perfect frictionless bliss, you are victorious. You have conquered the lands. You are not impeded in your motion. You are, again, the champion moving through the freedom state of your being. It is very, very symbolic. So these chakras are wheels of time, and they can be oriented in different ways. Like they can be wobbly like this because they're dynamic, and they can be moving fast or they can be moving slow. So you guys know this if you've ever tried to ride a bicycle, and I am not good at riding a bicycle at all. There's a lot of things that people learn in like childhood or like early teenage years, and I'm a walk-in, and so I never learned a lot of those things. So I've never really learned to ride a bicycle. But if you're going slow, then it's really easy to fall over, right? Like you don't have that much momentum and it's easy to fall over. But if you're going at a fast speed and those wheels are really, really moving along, you're like just, I want to say kapowing along. You're just moving along with very little friction and you're not going to fall over. There's a great amount of stability. This is a direct analogy for your time body. So the chakras of your body move like wheels. They are a vehicle. This is your vehicle for moving through time. When those chakras are moving at optimum speeds, you are the victor, victoriously, like a charioteer, moving across your conquered lands. No one can stop you. The wind is blowing through your hair. You're like, I'm awesome. I'm everything. But if your chakras are moving at a slower rate, or if they are not well balanced, and you're kind of falling over, then you're not in an optimum state. And that means that you're either experiencing disease or non-optimum health, or you're moving towards the membrane of death, or you are dead, or some aspect of yourself is not in alignment with the timelines that are about longevity and coherence. Okay. I got to draw stuff for you now. So you can see what this shape is shaped like, right? Have 4 vortexes. Now I'm going to teach you my little shorthand, and this will also serve you very well for the rest of our semesters and going forward in perpetuity. I got to get a color. So I'm not going to work with yellow, even though yellow is the color of that sculpture, but let's just work with the one, a color that you can see most easily on your screen. But what I'm going to do is draw a cross section. Pretend that this is that yellow sculpture, all right? And this is a cross section of what you see. So let's also draw it like this. In that sculpture, you've got kind of a swoopy vortex like this. And then you've got another one that swoops like this. A lot of information to get through today, so thank you for your patience. Doing great. And then you also have the vortex that's up here at the top. And then you have the vortex that's down here at the bottom. And you recognize these are 3-dimensional formfulnesses, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw it in a very simplified way. We're going to start, this green line over here is like the starting line. That is so funny. It did a thing. It's very weird. I didn't mean for that to happen, but we're just going to go with it. And here, this giant purple dot in the middle is the singularity. And when, here, let's also get a different color. Here, I'm going to draw some lines. These lines, when I start to draw these lines going up like this, these are, I'm drawing them as if they are straight lines or lollipop lines, you know, lollipop sticks or something like that. But you have to, with your mind, comprehend that they are actually spirals that go up the center like this. But if I made my diagrams with spirals, it would be difficult for you to see and really know what is going on. So I make these as if they are starting at the bottom and they're straight lines going up the top. And there's only one of these lines that starts at the bottom and goes all the way up the top to the purple dot. Okay, so now I have to talk about, this is time. This is a shorthand for time. This, where I am putting this 0, is the beginning, moment 0. The graph goes up, the time gets moves forward as the graph moves, quote unquote, upward in this direction. So like, this is where you start out with when you are born, where I'm making this scribbly dot. That's where you start off with. That is the moment 0. And like, for example, if I'm here and I'm going up this timeline in the middle, I'm getting older and older and older, and then I'm getting to infinity. So this is the basic of what you're shaped like. So a key takeaway is that not only are chakras not just a glowing ball of light, chakras have form. Chakras have these vortexes that are what they're formed out of. They also have convergence points, which are these central singularity points all throughout your body, mostly up and down your spine. And they are made of time. So each one of these lines that I drew over here is a timeline. And that means it's a narrative structure where something happens. Like, for example, you were born in the hospital, came out of your mother's womb. They wrapped you in a blanket, put you in a little bassinet. And then this is a short timeline over here, because you know what happened? You got a disease. You breathed in a microbe one day after you were born, and you died. And then that was very sad, but that was the end of your life, because this curved black line is the membrane of death. And it is not a static object. It has a movement. So there's like a waterfall of energy that's moving in this direction, and also parallel and symmetrical in this direction. In fact, those waterfalls of energy come from the source, and they flow all the way around, and they go all the way back to the source. And they flow in a figure 8 like this. And that can, I hope you can see this very messy figure 8 I'm drawing. That is one of the primary flows of energy in the cosmic infrastructure. And when I portray it like that, you're like, oh, that's what death is. Death is not some mean, scary guy wearing a black cloak and carrying a giant knife and waiting to cut off my head. He is not a boogeyman. That is a figure 8 of impersonal abstract energy that flows through the universe. And the problem is, you're not supposed to be on this membrane. You are not supposed to be standing here. Like, this is like a highway of time, and you're not supposed to be there. If you are there, something has gone very wrong. And every single one of these timelines, let me just get a different color so I can kind of like gesture without confusing you here. But every single one of these timelines represents an equation of different moments. Like the moment 0, where you start off with. So let's do it over here on the right. Here's your birth. And here's another moment, something else that happened, plus another moment, plus another moment, another moment, another moment, another moment, another moment, equals the end moment of your life. And that's what one of these final moments, let's make a dot over here. Each one of these final moments, I call it your final denouement. That's why these are like lollipop sticks. They have a lollipop at the end of it. Each of these red dots is a final moment of your life where you are frozen in the moment of death. You're like, Aurora, this is dark. It is a little bit dark, I admit. Because you know something? This timeline, this time bundle, this diagram of time, it represents the potentials of life and death that you encompass and embody. And the whole entire intention is for you to learn how to navigate away from death and towards life. You do not actually want to be one of these red dots on the membrane of death. You don't want to be a frozen version of yourself stuck there with a bad thing happening. You actually want to be this version of self that I'm really emphasizing in red. That is the version of yourself that is the ascended master. And this timeline that I'm super emphasizing in red is called the path of least likelihood. Because in this time diagram, there's only one path that leads you back here. It's the source, it's also the destination. There are innumerable timelines all around that potential. Really an almost uncountable number of alternative timelines. You all have navigated this. Whatever is your present age, whatever decade you are in, hold on, let me hydrate here. Like if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, however many years you've lived, you have done something right because you have made choices that have successively placed your center of awareness, and I'll just make your center of awareness this black dot, from areas over here where you would be moving on a timeline that would bring you towards death to being over here, moving towards life. This time vortex here represents a refinery of time where you begin here at the outer edge. And the first couple of timelines that you experience are timelines where you die almost immediately. Like I said, you are born. Maybe you're born with the umbilical cord wrapped around your neck and you die 1 minute later. That's this timeline over here, this super short timeline at the edge. Or the nurse drops you on your head. Oops, it's a beautiful baby. Oh, sorry, I dropped your baby and now your baby's dead. Like that type of thing, something that happened right away. I'm very callous. I'm sorry, I'm sounding terrible here. Now let's move like some of these timelines here. Like maybe there you're like 2 years old and you're like, hooray, I just got a new bicycle. I think I'm going to experiment about what it's going to be like if I try to ride my bicycle down the stairs onto a concrete floor. And then guess what happens? You die because you're not supposed to do that. And that was a terrible choice, but you didn't know because you were a little kid. And then what happens? In each of these moments, your consciousness comes from the source, assembles over here, begins moving upward in the time diagram back towards your home, which is the source, which is the destination, and you make choices. If you choose to ride your bicycle down the stairs with no helmet onto a concrete floor, then you have made poor choices. The math equation over here adds up to death. In choice plus choice plus choice plus bicycle plus concrete floor equals dead. And then when you have that experience, you get an interim assessment of the math of your life, where literally this math equation is looked at by you in a higher dimensional state. And even if you're 2 years old, you get the message. You're like, look, kid, you made a really bad choice. And you did this, this, and this, and now you are dead. And then almost every person who goes through this assessment moment, when you like find out how bad your math was and you're on the membrane of death, if you're a good person with a good soul, almost every single person has the same response, which is, wow, I wish I had a chance to do it all over again. I want to make better choices. Please give me another chance. And if you're a good person, that's what happens. You literally circulate around from there back to here, except now you are one position closer to the optimum timeline. And you try it again and you try better. And you get to that same moment when you're 2 years old and you're like, just got that bicycle. Maybe I should not go down the stairs. Maybe I should drive it safely on the sidewalk and learn how to ride my bicycle effectively. You make a different and better choice. In fact, all of these red dots and all of these dead versions of you speak to and inform your journey as you are focusing your awareness and moving closer and closer towards this central core timeline that is who you really are. So in order for you to move through this refinery process of what it is to occupy a body and have chakras and move through time, you got to get smart, kid. You got to stop going in this direction, which is towards the membrane of death, making choices that kill you and end your life and end your capacitation in the world. And you have to move towards this timeline here. This, I didn't draw that very well, but this one that's right here in the middle, because you're aiming for the timeline that brings you back home to yourself, to divinity, to connection and reconnection with divine consciousness. And some of what you're doing is trial and error, where you're like, I guess that didn't work. I ended up on the membrane of death. Let's try it different next time. But sometimes you get information in the form of intuitions and parallel like knowledge. You can get parallel knowledge from these parallel lives over here that tell you, once you start to be tuned into it and be aware of it, don't do that. Don't do that. That's a terrible choice. You are going to die. Don't make that choice. So in ancient concurrent Atlantis, each one of us had active higher faculties, meaning our third eye and everything about our mind was fully divinely connected and fully tuned, and we saw with perfect 20/20 vision. And we could see like, oh, if you do that, you're going to die. If you do this thing over here, you're going to die. Don't do this thing. And that could be any reckless choice or any ignorant choice. Don't eat that bad sandwich. You will die. Don't ride your bicycle unsafely. You will die. How about don't get in that person's car? You will die. And many other choices. And none of us died. Ancient concurrent Atlantis, in our world there, you know what? We didn't have any red dots on the membrane of death. I'm erasing all of these red dots because we never experienced those deaths. Oops, I erased all of time because we navigated time so perfectly that we never actually died. Oops, okay, I can't erase effectively, but just imagine I'm erasing all of those red dots because you had no deaths in ancient concurrent Atlantis. Death had never been invented, death had never been experienced because we all could see the future. And we all could tell if we were headed towards the membrane of death. And you know what we would do? Make different and better choices. And this is the essence of what this time apparatus is as a refinery of consciousness. We have come here into the world with these chakras that are meant to be wonderful tools for our vehicle of moving through time and creating more light and gaining more wisdom. Not some kind of an endless karmic washing machine of eternal drudgery, walking in negative time loops and inescapably dying over and over and over until finally you by happenstance, you come upon the right recipe that leads you towards eternal life. That is not what we are here for. Go back to my face. We'll talk about this a little bit more here. And pardon me while I hydrate because it's kind of warm out today. So you are meant to be made out of perfect math. You're meant to be made out of these perfect harmonic patterns and harmonically conforming timelines that are what actually helps you to live a long life. There's a reason for this. I told you that this is a language, like everything that I'm teaching you. It's a language that is like, it's not just a language for communicating, like that is something that you use language for, but it's a language for expressing divine truth and divine perfection, which is why it's very close to math. Like with math, you don't really use it to communicate, to be like, will you please pass the ketchup? But you use English for that, right? But you use math in order to describe the perfection of the molecular structure of what ketchup is made out of, or what the table is made out of, or what the hamburger is made out of. The structure of the chakra is an abstraction, and it is very much analogous to math as an abstract recipe of who you are and of the potentials of who you are. And some of these potentials of who you are at the far periphery are not accurate. They're distortions. They're not who you really are. The version of you at 2 years old that would choose to, in a silly way, get on your bicycle and, crack your head open on a concrete floor and die is not the real you. That is actually a distorted version of you. It's not the real you. And as you go through that time vortex and you're moving through your day, I drew it as a very simplistic one where there are all of these lollipops, but you have an almost uncountable number of timelines. And every day you have an enormous branching structure of choices that you're going to have to make as you're moving through time. when you're very, very young, a lot of the choices that lead you towards death are just simple pragmatisms, like learning about microbes and learning about gravity and learning about, like don't walk in traffic and get run over by a car. Like these are simple lessons, but still important. But as you begin to master the coordination of your body, right? Like you start to master walking, balance, riding a bicycle, all these things, your death is less likely to happen through the accidents and misadventures of your body. Like you know how to walk, you know how to not fall over. You're not going to fall into a tar pit and drown. But then it becomes more an expression of your personality and your character. Living longer and making better choices that keep you from dying becomes an expression of your character. Like when I say choose not to get into someone's car, like sometimes, I mean, of course, we live in a non-pristine world, very different than ancient concurrent Atlantis. But in our world, like there are dangerous people and you should not get in their car. And if you choose to get in their car, like you will end up dead in a ditch somewhere. And I'm saying that in a lighthearted way, but I actually have a friend, and she told me this story from way back when I lived in Woodstock, that these are some of the things that you'll resonate with as you look back on your life. So she was at one point, like, kind of a wild child, hitchhiking around, and that wasn't that unusual to do in the Woodstock area in, let's say, like the 70s and the 80s, all right? But there was this one time when she was at a truck stop and she was hitchhiking, and this one guy was like, "Oh yeah, I'll give you a ride." And she totally had a flash of the future, and she saw herself dead in a dumpster, and she was so scared. She kind of like was like, "Okay, man, like just hold on, like I'll see you real soon." She ran into the bathroom, and she would not come out. She couldn't confront the guy. She didn't want to get in his car. She literally jumped out the bathroom window to be able to run away. And that is how she stayed alive. She did not end up on the timeline where she was dead in a dumpster. In fact, you would even say that the version of her that made a very poor choice and got into the car of an unsafe person would speak to her from the membrane of death and would say, "Don't be like me. Don't get in that car. Run away now." And if you listen and follow that intuition, then you make good choices in that math of your life stays together and you stay alive. So that becomes less about the coordination of her body and whether or not she could ride a bicycle without falling over and dying, and more about social coordinations, having an insight about social dynamics and the trustworthiness of the people around her. Character stuff. You gotta hone your character and your boundaries and your ability to say who you are in the world, who you want to hang out with in the world. Like, don't hang out with people that are going to kill you and put you in a dumpster, and or hitchhiking or doing dangerous stuff like that. You start to hone your character and make choices that are life affirming and health extending for yourself. And that is what keeps you from going towards the membrane of death. So the directions, where's my little pen thing? Hold on a second. I put my little pen thing somewhere. It's somewhere, I don't know where it is, but okay, I have to use a Sharpie marker. So here, the quadrant that I'm drawing is this membrane over here, right? Like here's the swoop, and then this would be the central core timeline going up the center here, all right? You can think of this as this is your chakra that moves through time. It has a wiggle waggle to it. It's not static, it's dynamic. And this is you. Sometimes you are moving towards the membrane of death like this, but sometimes you're moving towards divinity like this. And this is the critical thing that you are exploring through your free will. You are exploring the way to be able to make your chakras be in alignment with divine intelligence. So people use all sorts of loose language when they talk about chakras, and they're talking about like, blah, blah, rebalanced my chakras, or blah, blah, opened my chakras, or blah, blah, did something to my chakras. I often do not connect with that language at all because it doesn't make sense to me, because I don't really know what people are doing. So I will say there's a lot of loose language in the community of spiritual seekers talking about what their chakras are, what their chakras are doing, and what they're doing with their chakras that I often do not comprehend or connect with. My voice is my face is making that like I do not comprehend face. I don't know. I don't know what it means to open somebody's chakras. I don't know. But I do know what happens when you make better choices in your life, that your chakras go into an alignment with divinity. And divinity is the source, the convergence point, the zeroth dimension, the origin point from which life and consciousness and timelines merge, and the destination that you also return to on your journey of being a being of pure light. So what you're trying to do in your life is to refine your consciousness, to gain more self-knowledge, to gain the capacity to anticipate the future, to gain the capacity through your free will to make good choices, and to gain the capacity to feel when your chakras are out of alignment like this, how to get them back into alignment. Now, the things that make chakras go out of alignment like this are not always things that originate with you and are not always things that are in your direct control. So now we must refer to the wonderful acronym that Pedro came up with. He's a student of this class for many years. We call them the PUTIs because I was calling them those pesky occupiers of the interstices. And the interstices are the membrane of death here and the membrane of death here. And the membrane of death is supposed to be clear. Like there's not supposed to be anybody living there. First of all, in ancient concurrent Atlantis, none of us ever died, and there's no one on the membrane of death. And it is only through the aberration of the bad stuff that happened both on Mars and with Tiamat, or what is known as Malduk, depending upon which mythological, words you align with there. But catastrophe of what once was a planet that's currently the asteroid belt and all the trauma involved with that. Because those things exist and because a bunch of very naughty, poorly calibrated time magicians made crappy time machines that did not work well, those consciousnesses ended up smeared on the membrane of death. So once again, death itself is an aberration. You're not supposed to go to the membrane of death. You're supposed to stop and redirect your life before you get to the membrane of death. If you can see the future and you are in free will, of course, you're going to do that. So it has only been from humanity being disconnected from their higher senses or diminished in their free will that any one of us has ended up on the membrane of death. You're actually not supposed to have to make these successive journeys where like you die of microbes or your umbilical cord or a childhood accident, you keep on coming back within one life. You're actually not supposed to do that. You're supposed to just have one long, beautiful continuum of consciousness from the moment you emerge in matter until the moment that you return or are restored to pure light. So you're never supposed to die. But this has become the normal because humanity has been separated from the higher faculties. And we're going to keep going with class today. And I'll tell you about what are the higher faculties and how do they function and what does this represent. But please know that having to try every single wrong note on the piano before you finally get to the right note that you're supposed to be playing is not how you play the piano. You're supposed to read the musical score. Okay. So I'm only moderately literate. I don't really read music that effectively, but luckily you can make a lot of music in the world without having to read music. But if you want to play Mozart and stuff like that, you have to learn how to read music. Yes, the musical score of the cosmos is everything that I'm teaching you in this class. Comprehending the proportions, the harmonics, and the colors will help you to be able to anticipate effectively what is the next thing that is coming, so that way you can make a great choice. Like when I'm playing music, there's like 3 notes, C, D, and E. And I'm like, oh, if I'm going to play a C and then I'm going to play a D, I think the next note that's going to come is going to be an E. Something tells me, because these are patterns. Patterns in music, or let's say recipes. If you're making Italian food, anytime that you've got tomatoes and basil, you can throw in mozzarella and it's going to taste great. Tomato, basil, mozzarella. Those things just fit together. So you start to comprehend the patterns so that you can anticipate, so that you can make food that tastes good or live a life that ends in eternal life instead of in death, which is failure. These pesky occupiers of the interstices are aberrations. They shouldn't exist on or in your chakras. I would often wait until later in the semester to really talk with people about this because, I'm a very responsible teacher. When I first started teaching about this, I didn't want people to jump to conclusions and think that they were falsely like internalizing demonic structures inside of themselves and go into self-destruction or self-harm because they perceived demons inside of themselves. But I will tell you that it's logical. It is truthful. The chakras are time structures that exist within you. The putis or pesky occupiers of the interstices are echoes or residues of lives that have gone horribly awry, of true psychopaths that are stuck on the membrane of death. And they exist within the chakras. So the horrible psychopaths exist on the membrane of death, and the membrane of death exists within the chakras, and the chakras exist within you. Therefore, it is logical that horrible psychopaths exist within you. Oh no, now it's time to go jump up, fly off the handle and get all upset. No, don't. Because this is a big part of what we are here to clean and rectify. So the thing that makes the chakras go out of alignment is the ballast of the unresolved emotional energy of those who did not die well and who are stuck on the membrane of death. Because what I have already described to you is if you're moving at an angle, you didn't do your math correctly, you smash your bicycle, you hit the membrane of death. And then what happens? You don't get stuck there for forever, not at all. They sit you down, and this is all virtual. So it's an allegory. But your soul is presented with a clipboard. You can imagine that I have glasses on and I'm like, hi, I'm here to give you your assessment. Here's the clipboard of you. Here's your life. Here's all the places where you made mistakes. Red X, red X, red X. There's no argument here. This is just the math of your life. And then again, in this interim assessment, each person is able to create their own soul response, which if you're a good person, and you're here to learn and to grow, you look at the clipboard and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I made that mistake. I am more than that. I am better than that. I want to do better. And you say very honestly, give me another chance. And it's just like saying to the coach, like, put me in, coach, like, give me another chance. I didn't do so good. I dropped the ball. I really massively screwed up, but let me do better. And so out of that earnest desire and passionate wish, you get reinserted as a baby at the beginning of your life again. And then you have to go through all of those successive choices again. But every time you do it, just like being a musician, you're like, oh, I know this part. I already played this part before. I can play this part. I can rock this part. That part came out really good. Okay, that's great. That's all the part I've already learned how to play. Then you will always get to the new stuff that you haven't yet mastered. And then you'll be like, okay, I'm in time. I don't know what I'm going to do. Let's try to make decisions that don't end in my death, dead in a dumpster somewhere. And then you try to make the best choices that you possibly can. So now let's talk about the process of making choices. This involves your free will, but this also involves your higher faculties. So in being a full spectrum human, claim the totality of who you are. Let me hold on and hydrate. From your physicality presence, through all of your layers of being, all the way through to your most divine level of self. When you claim all of that as self, then you are able to see down the road of time and make good choices. So now let's go through the colors of the rainbow so that we can talk about what all of those layers represent. because for a very long amount of time, humanity has been bifurcated right about at this level, more like at this level, the level of the human mind, or OS human, preventing humanity from connecting to unconditional love and everything else that stacks up on unconditional love. These are your higher faculties. And this is how you see through time. And this is how you make great time choices instead of playing by ear or screwing up all the time and trial and error, making a lot of mistakes, and then finally making your way through time. Having your higher faculties active, functional, and claiming them as your own is essential for you to be able to not have to be on that constant roller coaster of death and rebirth, even within one particular life. Okay? So to complete the thought before I move on to the rainbow colors and what they mean, if you're a good person and you get onto the membrane of death, you get your assessment from the clipboard, and then you learn you screwed up and you get a chance to make it better, right? Bad people stay stuck on the membrane of death. And those are who and what the pooties are. They have intentionally smeared or stuck themselves on the membrane of death through their own very, very bad life choices. And some of those bad life choices involve making a crappy time machine that is very badly calibrated, that when it goes kablooey, blows them up in a way that they get stuck on the membrane of death. None of this equates to eternal life, but they have been so misinformed and not very smart that they're like, I know, I'll make this very poorly constructed time machine that is not well calibrated and then experiment with my own life to see what's going to happen. This is my SpongeBob face, a very profound stupidity, and see what's going to happen. Just like when you're a 2-year-old, you're like, I think I'll ride down the stairs onto that concrete floor and see what will happen. And they did that, except for them, it wasn't just a skull fracture. It was really a destruction of their soul, stuck in a way that they can't get out of that spot. And we can cast all sorts of projections. Like, did they mean to do it? Was it a terrible accident? Was it accidentally on purpose? Maybe they wanted to be stuck in the membrane of death. Maybe they thought it was a form of eternal life. Maybe they were this, maybe they were that. All of those maybes are very tiresome to me. In the end, like, I kind of don't care. You just say this, like, they played bad music. They not only played bad music, but they smashed their guitars on stage. And that is how the pooties ended up stuck in this interim between life and death. That's the place we know as hell. And the pooties are demons. And they are not good people. Not in any way. And it's also very crucial to know that they are stuck there through their unwillingness to learn, grow, or to evolve. As the red clipboard has been shown to them. Like, wrong, 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 wrong. Crappy time machine, very wrong. And they're kind of like this. Imagine like the sweat hogs, surly. They're like this. They're like, hey, screw you, teacher. I don't care. And you're like, I just showed you that you did your life all wrong. And these guys are not like, oh no, I did my life wrong. Give me another chance, coach. They're like, screw you. And they ain't moving. And they've been there for a very long amount of time. And not only do they stay there as these unresolved emotional blockages, their arms crossed in a bad attitude, refusing to move, but they also interfere with you in your life because they are the ones who are destabilizing the chakras. They are the ones who make it harder for you to stay divinely connected and to live a life that is healthy. Literally every disease and accident comes from them. It comes from them destabilizing your time structure so that you're not living an optimal life. So every aspect of your life has been a battle of you trying to regain control over your chakras and your trajectory through time through your willpower against these pooties or consciousness residues of very, very uninformed, grotesquely mutated musicians who are not playing good music. And it's not even bad enough that they played their own bad music of anti-life music, but then they also have been trying to harm you from playing your life and your life music effectively. They get kind of a lift when they harm you in your life or make you die so that you end up on the membrane of death, then they kind of get some temporary energy or a temporary lift from that. They're stealing from you, basically. They're stealing life force energy. What they should do is they should go completely into entropy, which is a non-energy state. It's like they screwed up on such a profound level, they're never going to get to energy, which is the zeroth dimension where we're going. They can only go to entropy, which is a non-being state. And that is the essence of what flying river lasagna is. So I know that for some of you, this is a very new concept, and we will explore what flying rainbow lasagna is much more extensively in this class. It's my total job joy. Like I clearly light up to talk about this. Flying rainbow lasagna is the behavioral and formful representation of what it looks like when you balance out the stuff that is supposed to be in existence, getting energized and remaining in existence versus the stuff that is not supposed to be in existence going to entropy. All of the bad math goes to entropy. And that means it's kaput. Energy is withdrawn from it. There is nothing to sustain it in the world. There is no existence to it. It goes out of existence. So the result of all of that stuff, the consciousness echoes that are stuck on the membrane of death, and that they're causing harm to you, the living, and impeding your own educational journey in the world, the end result of what should happen to that is it should go to entropy. It should go into a non-being state. So now we have to talk a little bit about theology, because in Christian theology, even though I wear a cross, I'm not affiliated with any kind of the doctrines or churches in this world. I'm much more affiliated with like the ideals of Christ and the Christ consciousness network. But the dogma of eternal hell and damnation, I don't agree to that. I actually do not consent to that. So that is the sense of the explanation that these naughty consciousnesses have done something so naughty that they deserve to have an eternal punishment, and they're getting punished by living in the membrane of death, which is the hell realm. And that they're, burning in response to they're experiencing a friction as the energy of consciousness is flowing to them and through them, but they are malformed, and so it doesn't feel blissful and nice. It feels very unhealthy and causes a lot of, distress in their exposure to energy. But that is not an ideal cosmic form at all. Like you actually do not want to have any of these echoes or residues of consciousness stuck suffering in the fabric of space-time. It actually slows everybody down. It brings everybody down. It reduces the health of time itself, and time is an alive animal. Time is just as you and I have a metabolism. Time is alive and has a metabolism. And just like each one of us would suffer, if blood does not flow through the blood vessels, then there are blockages and some parts of the body die because there's not nutrient and blood flow to it. If time does not flow through those membranes of death, then time itself is suffering. So I do not agree to the Christian dogma and the idea of a hell as an eternal suffering place. Like, what do we do with all these poopy doo-doos, these not good people and very malevolent monsters? Like, what do we do with them? Throw them in hell, make them suffer for forever. That sounds like a good idea, right? This is SpongeBob face. But that doesn't sound like a very good idea at all, because you know what? That actually harms time. And the guys that are stuck on the membrane of death, they don't just sit there being like, oh, I'm so sad, I'm stuck on the membrane of death. You know what they do? They make your life hard. They siphon energy off of you, just like when you've got homeless people in your community. They don't just sit around being homeless people. They steal your stuff. And they not only beg on the streets, but like they'll steal your bicycle and then chop it up and sell it for parts. They're like trying to get energy in illegal ways. And the guys that are stuck on the membrane of death, these pooties, they are demonic and they steal energy from the living. They find ways to steal your bicycle. And you know what that equates to? Taking energy away from the momentum of your chakras. as when your chakras are moving fast, like your bicycle wheels are moving nice and fast. And you're like, I'm feeling awesome. I'm going along in my day, and I'm in a state of total health and vitality. And what these pesky occupiers of the interstices do is they find ways to create friction in your mind and in your body structures to siphon off life force energy that goes to them and makes you have less vitality and maybe even die. So if you've ever been walking along, like, I'm feeling so great, I'm feeling so great, and all of a sudden a thought comes in, and that thought might be about some personal inadequacy, like maybe you didn't send a birthday card to someone. That's a big one that happens for me. It's a lot of pressure to send these birthday cards, and you don't send it on the right day, and you remember far too long afterwards, and then you're walking along, you're feeling great, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I forgot to send that birthday card. All of your positive energy just goes out the window, and then you feel like a big giant piece of shit, and you feel really bad, and you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? I feel depression, I feel anxiety, I feel distress. And then you have to go buy a birthday card, and you have to write in it, I'm sorry this is so late, please forgive me, and send it to them and hope that everything is going to be okay, and call them on the phone. There's a lot of pressure with birthday cards around here, guys. But it could be any version of that for you, anything that you have regret about, and it can be something larger than merely a birthday card. And the birthday card is relatively small, inconsequential, funny, and pretty easy to fix. Call someone up and be like, sorry, I forgot your birthday, please forgive me, right? But what if you did something worse? Like, what if you hit someone with your car while you were drunk driving? Or something else, caused a death, basically. What if you caused a death? And you're like, I'm going along in my life, I'm feeling great, I'm feeling great. And then all of a sudden, kapow, that thought comes in that is like, wow, you did something really bad. And like, what do you do? Because the truth is, any one of us can make mistakes. Like, I have not, done bad things in the world. I've done good things in the world, but I've definitely made mistakes. Like, forgot to send someone a birthday card. But I'm trying to say, I know that I have inadvertently hurt people's feelings, and I have regret about that. And so these demonic putis, if they try to destabilize me, like I'm in perfect alignment, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, you forgot to send that birthday card, and then I'm like, oh no, now I'm heading towards the membrane of death, I feel terrible. That's it. It's like these vulnerabilities. And I try to use comedic examples of it, but many people have severe regret and it's not comedic. Like, you may have been in a war or whatever, made medical choices about procedures on your body or other people's bodies. Like, you might have done stuff that it's not as easy to fix as just sending a belated birthday card. These are what the putis love to feed off of. They like to feed off of regret and a sense of hopelessness and a sense of when you cannot be restored or forgiven in some way. And then they will just pitchfork and poke you in that area incessantly. And that is how they siphon off life force energy. And they can make your life a living hell through that. Any one of us can be vulnerable to this type of pitchforking. If it's birthday cards, or what if you had an abortion, or what if you killed somebody in a war? People can really get raked over the coals by this. So it is very, very challenging to maintain yourself going through the world and not have the energy be drawn off by these energy vampires who really exist not as sacred teachers teaching you to be a better person, but are really just parasites. Big stuff. Don't contextualize them as sacred teachers teaching you about your shadow side and how you should do better. Because, like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to send out these birthday cards on time. It's very hard. And it's constant. Like, there's always birthdays to remember. And I have a lot going on. So I don't always remember. No, they're not making me a better person by constantly raking me over the coals about the birthday cards that I didn't respond to, or phone calls that I didn't respond to soon enough, or text messages that I didn't reply to soon enough, or YouTube message comments that I didn't read or reply to soon enough. No, none of that is valid. And so You can tell. For me, it's mostly small scale social obligations that they pitchfork me about, but you know, it can be bigger stuff too. So of course, what you always want to do is to live an exemplary life and to make choices that you are not vulnerable to those levels of criticism. And this is very truthful. I make my choices in my life best that I possibly can, even sometimes knowing that I'm ignorant or don't have 20/20 vision of the road in front of me. So even if they criticize me internally with these, you know, demonic accusations, you can say, I made the best choice that I could, did the best I could, made the best choice that I could in that time. And then also, if you have regret, that you try to fix it in some way. All right, let's talk about the higher faculties, and I'll get to your questions and comments too. All right, so before we talk about the higher faculties, this is going to be in conjunction with the whole talking about red through violet, what are the layers of our being? But let's just start out by saying, for a very long amount of time, humanity has been defined as red, orange, and yellow. A red physical presence with orange mammalian emotions and a yellow intellect. And red, orange, and yellow brings us to the solar plexus here. For a very long amount of time, there was a limitation, an implantation in the level of the human OS. That's your mind and your verbal expression that made it very difficult for people to even get to the level and access unconditional love, which is this heart tone, authenticity, insight, and connection to the divine. In order to see down the road of time, you got to have all of these things going. And humanity hasn't had these things going intentionally for a very long amount of time. So the Putis not only occupy the membrane of death, destabilize your chakras, they are also 100% behind the agenda that has separated humanity from its own higher faculties, made it more difficult for you to navigate. And then they exist to criticize you in an invalid way as you're blindly bumbling through time because you can't see the windshield because of the things that they have done to you. All right. So, and in this class, I talk all about the imperfect world. It's very much not a pristine system. So to explore what are their higher faculties and how do they work, first, let's go through what are the colors of the rainbow and why am I obsessed with them? This is not merely because I think rainbows are pretty or cool or whatever, have a nice association with them or something like that. In fact, no, my interest in the rainbow actually predates any type of cultural affiliation in this world. And I've had lots of funny Aurora stories of me walking around wearing full rainbows and people being like, oh, like, are you going to a pride parade? And I'm like, no, what is that? I dress like this every day. So that's, you know, I had to learn, like, there's all of these code words and what does rainbow mean to different people. But here's why I'm interested in it, and here's where it comes from for me. And I came here with this knowledge and with this interest, okay? I didn't make this up. This is for real. Each one of these colors represents a layer of reality, just as I showed you with my beautiful drawings and sketchings at the beginning of this class. You have successive shells of reality that you live within. The biggest shell of reality, the largest in the proportion of your energy field and the recipe of you, is your physicality. And your physicality structure is defined by not only your physical cellular body, your somatic cells that you live within, but also the world of matter. So for me, it's my body, of course, my cells and my hair, but it's also my dress, my room, my physicality of my artwork around me, and even other people like my dog or my neighbors in my community. All of that is represented by the red chakra. In your body, your red chakra is analogous to your brainstem, and it represents your basic I am presence. In fact, if we were to go into an anthropomorphic read of what your red chakra would say, it would say, I am, I exist. And that's it. That's the basic right to exist. And this is a profound lesson. Like, each chakra color has a lesson and an affirmation associated with it. So the first lesson is, I exist. I am here. And you can do it with some attitude. I am here. And that is correct. You're here. But then also, this is important stuff. Your right to exist and to express yourself in existence is mitigated by or buffered by all of these other layers of your being, because you're not just here in existence in a survival mode. So the part of your body that is represented by this red I am presence is your brainstem. And I can draw it for you in a little drawing, but basically your brainstem is at the back of your neck. It's sometimes called the pons. It is the basic neurological structure that makes your body breathe, keeps your autonomic breathing and your heartbeat going. And it's also basic stuff like, can I eat something? Can I have sex with it? The basic survival drives exist within that area of your body. Upward from there is orange. So your red chakra is associated with actually the base of your spine, or your root chakra. Your root chakra is not your anus. That is not the area of your body. It is the base of your spine, which is like, kind of the bottom of your pelvis. And it also is analogous to your hip bones and your legs going all the way down to the ground. So like if you need to connect to the earth, you can sit on the earth, or you can put your feet on the earth. These are ways for your root chakra to touch the earth, okay? Then upward from there is, I'll tilt the camera so that you can see. This is the lower belly. So if my navel is here, it's my lower belly. That is where my intestines live, and that is orange. And the orange mammalian level of your being is basically emotions. And emotional energy is non-tangible. So the red chakra is everything that is the tangible, materialistic world. But once we get beyond that level of reality, we're into levels of ephemera. And objective materialist science does not feel that comfortable dealing with ephemera because you can't weigh it and you can't measure it. Like if I asked you, like, how many pounds of anger do you have? You can't answer that. How many kilograms of joy do you have? You can't answer that. How many centimeters of joy do you have? You can't answer that. But even the staunchest objective materialist has felt feelings. Like every scientist has felt like anger or joy or happiness or sadness. This is emotional energy. So we're getting into levels of intangibility, but it still is substantive. For example, if you come into a room, there's a cliche where you say the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. You can feel emotional energy. You can feel tension sometimes, or anger, a lingering energy that exists in the world. So emotional energy is not merely a mental construct or a fantasy or an illusion. It's an actual substantive thing, but it's not a physical substance. And humans think of it as if it is a biomolecular substance, like, oh, you're not feeling good, take this biomolecule and then you'll feel better, right? Like take some serotonin or take some cocaine and you will feel better. But emotions are not just molecules. Emotional energy is energy, it is intangible, and it literally puts us into motion. It is a motivational factor. The energy of orange is called mammalian emotions. So red is associated with reptiles. And what I told you is the reptilian brain, your brainstem. Kill or be killed. Can I eat it and have sex with it? That's it. No emotion, no care. Orange is associated with the levels of your brain that is mammalian cortex, where emotions exist. And emotions can be things like not only happiness and sadness, but key points, emotions about community, how you feel about other people. Do you like someone? Do you hate them? Are you attracted to them? Are you repulsed by them? Mammalian emotions are about living in community. Reptiles do not live in community. Reptiles just have their eggs on the beach and then they go away and the babies come out and live their lives. Like they don't care about their babies. Mammals care about their babies. Mammals live in community. one of the greatest things about mammals is that when you find a job that is too big for you to do on your own, you can ask for help from others. So at any point, each one of us will find something that is an object that is too large for us to lift on our own. And then be like, well, what do I do now? I have this giant boulder in my path, and it's too big for me to lift on my own. If you're a reptile, you're like, well, that's it. I have no friends and I've alienated everyone in my life. I can't do anything. But if you're a mammal, you can be like, you know something? I have a bunch of friends over here and I have helped them. I gave them some bananas the other day, so they're my friends. If I need help with this, I think they're going to help me. And you communicate to them. And because you have developed a rapport in community, they're willing to help you. And they come over and you all get the boulder out of the way. All right. That is the essence of greater levels of complexity that are possible through working and living in community, and why the mammalian structure is a more complex brain structure and human social structure or animalistic social structure than the reptilian structure. And it's true in your brain. So mammalian feelings, these are also where we tend to think of our feelings of love, or in this class, I sometimes call it jokingly WOV. Like, WOV, I love you. I love you so much. I want to kiss you and smooch you and snuggle with you. That is mammalian love. But that is very, very different than love that is at the heart, the unconditional love, okay? So know that your orange emotions are very sacred. It's sacred to have these boundaries. If people treat you well, then you have good feelings for them and good emotions for them. If they treat you like SHIT, then you have negative emotions for them. And that's all very valid. And that is part of the complexities of living in community. And that a lot of mammalian emotion also has to do with taking care of offspring, parents bonding with and protecting children, the creation of small families or tribal structures. All of that type of stuff happens from mammalian emotions, orange emotions. In your body, again, it's your small intestines, and it's also where you build a lot of your neurotransmitters. So yes, there are chemical portals for emotions like serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, all of these good things, and they make you feel certain ways, all right? But your feelings are more than just a chemistry set, all right? So now moving upward from there, now we get to yellow, which is the level of the solar plexus. That's right here. It's above my navel, but below my breasts and my heart. And the solar plexus is where we define mind as residing. And this is challenging because you are defining mind with your mind, but that is not your true mind. You have been hacked many times. As I am beginning class by telling you all about the pooties, I'm not waiting until lesson 18 because you need this information now. And also many of you are returning students. And also we've spoken about this as a culture quite openly, so I don't have to worry about being so protected as a teacher. But you've been hacked many times. And what that means is the implantation of language is non-natural. Using these flapping, moving mouth parts and symbolic phonemes to communicate is not natural. What is actually natural is to use our non-verbal mind, which is your higher faculties. But humanity got cut off from the higher faculties with the implantation of the verbalized mind, which is very hacked, or meaning it has back doors through the behavioral controls and things that make you less free. And it was implanted or projected upon you by a control system, not by humans themselves. So humans did not decide, like, let's develop these verbal phonemes and talk with each other like this. It's like, yeah, that's not what happened. Actually, you were genetically modified. And they changed your chromosomes, and they changed your brain structure, and they changed a lot of things about you. And the key point is the OS human, operating system human, and the verbalized conscious talking mind. It's just like the early iPods when those first came out for listening to music. I remember when I first saw one that was like 2011 or so, and someone was like, would you like to, have this iPod? I had no idea what it was. I'm like, what is it? They're like, it has music on it. And I'm like, this seems cool. And I'm like, okay, like, here's the play button. Where's the off button? And they told me there's no off button. I'm like, what do you mean there's no off button? They're like, well, you can press pause, but you can't turn it off. And I was like, that is some kind of thing right there, because that is what they did with your mind. Came here as a little tiny pre-verbal infant, right? You don't know how to talk. You don't know how to say, mommy, daddy, I'm thirsty. or mommy, daddy, whatever, my diaper is giving me a rash. You only know how to, cry and use body language and other things like that. And then you learn how to talk in order to be able to express more complex aspects of your journey and your needs and your requirements to others. Learning language is a non-natural brain challenge that each one of us does. And you do it so that way you can organize and navigate the world better. But the point is, they give you a language structure, but they don't give you an off button. And once you internalize the verbalized language structure and you've got this talking mind in your mind every day, don't know how to turn it off. And it's very annoying. And it is literally a barrier at this level that makes it so that you cannot more easily access the unconditional love of true ascendance, like true cosmic love, and the higher faculties that actually help to guide you through life. So this is an unnatural implant. So red, orange, yellow, body with emotions and some cognitive intellect. And the cognitive intellect happens at the level of the cerebrum, which is the bumpy convoluted surface area on your brain. That is actually not where thought happens, but that is where humans recognize that this particular level of conscious daily waking intellect resides. For a long time in human history, that was the definition of what it was to be a human. And the definition of what it was to be a human also included like being in error. To err is human, but to forgive is divine, and many other aphorisms. An inherently diminished definition of self, an inherently inadequate definition of self. Getting up to the level of green and the unconditional love of cosmic, reconnection, that was seen as something for only special people. Like maybe, everyone else is going to be like toiling in the fields. You're going to be using a wheelbarrow and just like pushing animal dung around your garden. That was what humans were like. And maybe only special people are going to live in a monastery and take time to sit in a cross-legged position, contemplate the world, and get to the level of unconditional love. But everyone else is just going to live as like this animalistic presence with a small amount of cognitive ability and self-descriptive words. And I'm here to tell you that that is not truthful, that the unconditional love tone is the baseline for who you are in the world, that it's not just for ascended masters. It's not just for special people on a mountaintop. It's not just for people who are quote unquote spiritual on a journey. Hi, everybody. Thank you. And sorry, we got a little bit of an interruption there. So I'm going to be completing while I'm on my phone over here. And so apologies, I know I'll be at a slightly strange angle to be able to do this, but we'll keep going. Okay. So because we didn't complete as much as I want to, which is getting to the level of unconditional love. Unconditional love is actually a tone that is another measurable tone, just like your emotions are a measurable frequency or a tone or have a palpable sense to them. So too does unconditional love have structureness to it. So unconditional love in the abstract sense is not like love and kisses. It is more like the type of love that happens when you are perfectly in tune with reality, meaning you are moving through time at one moment per moment. You're not like anticipating the future. What's going to happen when? Or dragged down by the past, thinking about and defined by what has already happened. You're completely focused in the moment now. And there are all sorts of different meditation exercises that you can do to bring yourself into the moment now and to work on focusing your mind and cultivating unconditional love. I have a teaching, it's lesson 5, Mastering the Mind. And I'll share with you my ways of doing it, but please know there's no right or wrong. There's only what works for you. So you can tell I love walking on my treadmill and I love walking, and I do a lot of meditation while I'm walking. I'm not really that good at just like sitting quietly, not moving and meditating, because I'm very active and wiggly and definitely don't do that well with that type of meditation. But some people love a nice, quiet, seated meditation. Okay, so please know that it's perfectly fine, and I celebrate you if that's who you are and what works for you. But anything that brings you into that blissful state where you are not anticipating the future or dragged down by the past. And that is the love tone. And in order to activate your higher faculties, you must get enough love in your savings account. So to do anything big in the world, you have to use energy. In our social world right now, it's money. Like if you want to make a dress, it's going to cost money. For me to make this dress, I had to have an envisionment, I had to have an inspiration, I had to have emotional energy and artistic energy, but I also had to have money. And money is equivalent of unconditional love. So when you're able to get into inner silence, to turn off your talking mind and go into your connected feeling state of cosmic consciousness, which is love, then you get energy in your energy banks. And then when you get enough energy in your energy banks, that is when you can activate the higher faculties. So now let me grab my sculpture. Let's talk about what are the higher faculties. So here's green, that's unconditional love, the level of the heart. Light blue, it's kind of an aquamarine, is the level of the throat. And this is actually the level of authenticity. It's communication, but it is truthful communication. It is when you speak your truth. And that can be, of course, speaking with your words, but it can be anything that comes outward, radiating from your arms. It can be playing the piano. It can be writing. It can be sketching. It can be gesturing or using a form of, gesture or symbolic language with your hands. All of that is our ways of communicating authentically. Upward from there is your insight, and your insight is your true mind. That's the dark blue color over here. That's always going to be the 2-inch circle in all of my paintings. Your insight is your true mind. It is a non-verbal mind. So at the level of your solar plexus, it's talking. This is really crucial stuff. At the level of your insight over here, you are not talking. It is profound knowing beyond words. And I don't know when you guys have ever had that experience. Like maybe you have been in a dream where you were like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something in this dream, but you just don't have the words for it. Or other times, like if you've ever had a person's name is on the tip of your tongue, but you just can't quite remember it. Or other forms of, again, just deep intuitive knowing where you have information and cognition, but it is not in the form of words. So for me, my insight comes in exactly the same way that I do my paintings. Like there's imagery. The imagery has information inherently as a part of it in its formfulness. I don't hear words, I just know. And this is our true mind. And it is analogous to and associated with the pineal gland, but they're actually two separate things, because the pineal gland is a physical structure in your brain that is a big part of your insight and your mind and your ability to precognate, to anticipate the future and to see the future, but also you have an energy field that is around your brain and around your mind, and that comes outward from that pineal gland. And so it's both the gland and the energy field. And you have, that is one of the chakras that's spinning around like this or like this around your face. But then you also have the final chakra, which is violet. And that is analogous to this pointy area right here. I always point to it as if it's the top of your head because it is directly analogous to when you're first born and you have the fontanelle or the unfused skull plates at the top of your skull. It is that area at the top of the skull where you're divinely connected. And in the first year of your life, or the first year of a baby's life, you're very divinely connected and you don't yet have language. And as you develop more of a sense of individuation and your own ego structure and your own name and how you are separate from the rest of the world, that fontanelle closes up, skull plates fuse, and that area of divine connection closes down. It's not supposed to be this way, but it just is the way that it has been in our development for a long time. And then as the connection to divinity is closed down, it might be at like 3%. Instead of 100% divinely connected, you now might be only 3% divinely connected, because now you're focused in your ego state as an individuated person and in doing all the things that you do as an individual, and moving away from that numinous or completely boundarylessness connected state, which is what it's like to be totally connected to God, the divine presence. So this is also, like I say, on your anatomy, where you plug into God. And you do want to have a connection to God, and you want to get that energy that comes from plugging in. That's where real vitality happens. So on your body, even though I know I'm connecting and showing you the connection points at the top of your head, the truth is it's all throughout your body. It's in your DNA. That connection to singularity point or to pure divine intelligence happens not just through your brain, but it happens at the center in every one of your multiple cells in the nucleus, specifically in the dance of the DNA. And that is where you have your divine connection, and that is where you have your highest sense of self, and that is where you achieve and receive your highest directives from, as you're being guided by a sense of very, very complex and perfect intelligence that helps you to know where to go and what to do. So when you're navigating this time structure, you're like, I don't know where to go and what to do. What do I do? You connect to the divine consciousness that tells you where to go. And that is a critical life skill and survival skill, even more so than the survival skills that we know about that are at the back of the neck, where it's like, find stuff to eat and then procreate and make more of you. Like that's one way to survive. That's the reptilian way. But there's this other way to survive that has to do with connecting to divine intelligence and receiving moment by moment excellent guidance to be able to know what to do at each moment. So you have to, in order to do that, first of all, be in unconditional love, which means that you're not stuck to the past and you're not anticipating the future. And you're kind of like in the band and you're ready to play. You're like, okay, I'm ready to play. And then when you get your directives, it's like, okay, kid, here's your notes. This is what you're going to be playing. You're like, okay, I play my notes and I play what I'm supposed to play. And that brings you into these levels of perfect connection and levels of uprightness in your chakras that it's incontrovertible. Like beyond the questions of the intellectual mind, the information that comes in from your higher senses and your true mind is incontrovertible. Like you're not going to question it. So this is really different because like if you've never been in that level of your mind and you're only familiar with human philosophy is doo-doo. It doesn't really tell you anything. It's just a bunch of like, well, maybe this, and maybe this, and maybe this, and maybe this. It's not a real recipe. It can drive you crazy because it can tell you like, and sometimes this is the right thing to do, but sometimes this is the right thing to do. And this school of thought says this, and this school of thought says this, and sometimes they fight, right? And all of that, like it puts you into a sense of intellectual self-conflict and makes it much harder to navigate because it's not really giving you the recipe. And the recipe for each moment is often very unique and customized. So even though I told you like tomato, basil, and mozzarella, these things are always going to taste good together. But sometimes you have to work with what are the ingredients that are available. Maybe the store does not have any fresh basil on that day. What are you going to do? Can you substitute parsley? Can you substitute cilantro? Will this be a good recipe if you do those things? And moral philosophy and all of the question answers that happen at the level of the intellect are not going to help you. You like curl up in a ball and be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But when you have your higher faculties activated, you know exactly what to do because you are given the directives from the divine consciousness that literally created the time presence and created all these timelines and then tells you how to navigate. And your artistry is in following those directives and how you express it through your own, you know, uniqueness. So you get your notes, like, hey kid, here's your notes, here's what you're going to play on your instrument, but you get to choose like how passionately you play, like how long do you hold a note, what's the timing like you put yourself into it. But yeah, no, you follow the dictates of your higher faculties. This is what we did in ancient concurrent Atlantis. We knew what to do in each moment. We knew where to go. We did not fall to one side or the other side. We stayed right in the middle on that perfect timeline path because we got all of our directives. So I'm going to wrap it up soon, just because, of course, I had difficulty with my connectivity. I don't know why Zoom kicked me off, but I'm very happy that I'm able to do this little supplemental recording over here to bring things to a better completion and a closure. So we'll do much more. These are introductory concepts on the first day of class. So, but please know that mastering the concepts of the colors, what each layer is associated with, and how to navigate time field, this will serve you very, very well throughout your whole entire journey of being a consciousness. And this is transferable life skills. Like if you're a microbe, this chakra shape is still relevant. Planet, still relevant. Star, still relevant. Galaxy, still relevant. So this is not something where it's like you're just learning it as being a human, and then you're going to be some other form of life and be like, oh, none of those human lessons matter. Now I have to master the lessons of being a fruit fly or a dog or whatever. No, fruit flies, dogs, planets, everybody is mastering that chakra shape. Everybody is mastering movement through the refinery of time and learning and constructing, learning about themselves and also constructing themselves as the perfect aspects of self. So key points are, life is not a video game, because I don't want you to be sociopathically disassociated from the consequences of your actions, but you do have many multiple pathways through life, very similar to the choose your own adventure novels of the preteen years, if you ever did those books, whatever, maybe in when you were 11 or 12. Those books are about branching timelines, where basically the book starts out and it says, you and your friends are walking through a path in the woods. You come to a fork in the road. You can go to the left or go to the right. If you go to the left, turn to page 3. If you go to the right, turn to page 72. And then you can keep on following this story through many different readings, depending upon the choices that you make. And these are exactly like the choices that I'm talking to you about. Which timeline you are on. Do you choose to recklessly ride your bicycle and smash into the concrete floor? Do you choose to get into a questionable vehicle and end up dead in a dumpster? Or do you choose to make really, really great choices or pathways forward in your life that help to keep you safe, to keep your body safe, and to keep your body healthy? So some of these things also include the concept of like, you know, you can make really great choices about your health. Like, I'm going to eat kale salad, apple cider vinegar, I'm going to live forever, right? But what if you like get in front of a moving truck? Then you will not live forever. And all of the kale salad and apple cider vinegar isn't going to fix that. Or choosing to enlist in an army, or choosing to whatever, go into some whatever merchant marine, you know, whatever, deep sea fishing in Alaska. It's like, these are dangerous jobs. You will not live forever if you choose those jobs. So you start to comprehend that health is about much more than simply accessing the correct food, water, and supplements or minerals. Health is also about how you optimize your environment and the choices that you make in terms of who you're exposed to and what life experiences you are exposed to. And you're hopefully not self-destructive, and you're hopefully making your choices based upon the intention to move forward with longevity and coherence. So I will give you a teaching at a certain point all about the Merkaba, where you will learn about creating this protective force field around yourself that can help to bring you towards longevity and coherence. And that will be very fun and exciting, but that's, you know, for a little ways down the road. Let me see if I can touch on the chat and read what was going on here, because now I'll go to questions and comments. Just questions and comments. I'm sorry if I can't read the chat. Oh, ugh, sorry. I'm pressing buttons, very annoyed. in the fact that I can't effectively communicate with you guys because I'm on the phone. Because I know someone had some questions there. So apologies. I can read nothing. I can do nothing. I can do nothing. I can read nothing. I apologize for the inadequacy of this because somebody I know had some questions for me. Questions over here? Maybe they came up over here. Let's see if I can. No, yeah, no. There's no. Okay, yeah. Here's a question I can actually read. Okay, so this is from Kim Rose, and she says, what do you say in response to the narrative that reincarnation is a soul trap? Good question. I agree. So I'm very much at odds with many things from what I call the Hindu empire, that although it does contain some vestigial truth, the concept of the caste system is very corrosive and unhealthy in the way that it is presented. And the caste system goes hand in hand with the concept of karma and reincarnation across multiple lives in linear succession in that culture. And so the concept of reincarnation has been misrepresented as a type of reward scenario, where if you are a good person and you please the lords of karma, that then each time you reincarnate, you will be reincarnated in a successive, better situation. Or if you're naughty, then you don't please the lords of karma, then reincarnated in a worse situation. And so in the caste system, some people are untouchables, and it is presumed that they've been incarnated into either a very, very poor, impoverished, socially diminished family because they must have done something very wrong, or sometimes people are born into developmentally disabled bodies, and they may have malformed body parts, and they're looked at as if they're getting some kind of a just reward or punishment from things that they must have done in a previous life. All of that is nonsense and needs to go out the window. It's not truthful, because the truth is you are not living your multiple lives in a linear succession. Your linear language is not adequate to really talk about time effectively. Please note that you are living all of these lives at the same time. So that means that right now you are concurrently living all of your other existences. And this might be a real stretch for your cognitive ability, but you exist right now in ancient or concurrent Atlantis. You exist right now in ancient Greece or Neolithic Europe. You exist right now in whatever, 1776, the Revolutionary War. You exist right now in 2025. You exist right now concurrently with what you would consider to be the potentials of the future. All of these lives exist right now. They are not happening first one, then the next, and the next, and the next. So what you're having is a layered existence, exactly if I had many time tapestries all stacked up, layers of cloth all stacked up, and then imagine I take a thread, a needle with thread, and I sew through all of those layers. I'm piercing through the many multiple layers of time. That event structure pierces through all of those layers. Maybe it's a nice event structure, something like getting married and having a party. And in every single layer, you're doing something that equates to getting married and having a party. The high point of your life, high point of your life, high point of your life, all lined up. Or maybe low point of your life could be an example of, like, in one layer, you're having a car accident. In one layer, you're at a castle and someone is shooting you with an arrow. In another layer, like a wild boar is roaring you to death. Like, these are all the same type of negative experience that also all lines up and layers together in your life. So the truth is that your successes and celebrations and your difficulties are all concurrent across all of your multiple lives. And also that your success and your eventual meta liberation happens across all of your lives. That all of your lives click into position where all of these chakras of all of these versions of yourself go, and now enlightenment in all of your lives at once. And that happens in all of your chakras in your body. So from red all the way up through violet, all of your chakras coalesce, they work as one, and they all click into position. And from your many multiple experiences of being in a body through many different time places, everybody who you are clicks into position. All of these personalities have their aha moment, and they all recognize and remember that they are God finally connected on this amazing journey. So reincarnation, as it is presented in linear time language, not adequate. Need to expand and recognize that it is concurrent. And Kimrose also says, interesting that the Christian religion feeds off guilt, regret, and repentance. Totally, I have a lot to say. Not that I'm here to alienate people for their deeply held beliefs. I think that it's beautiful that people try to find some deeper meaning and that they look to a church or religious dogmas for that. I think that you're doing a positive, good thing by looking for deeper meaning. But I have a lot of criticisms of the Christian church, especially its exacerbation of those emotions that are those heavy emotions of guilt and shame and remorse. That those are the very emotions that tend to take people's chakras out of balance. You know what helps to bring you into perfect balance with divinity? Love. And love is more than love and affection, but it is radical self-compassion. And love and authenticity are very much a part of the activation of your higher faculties. So when you have your higher faculties restored, you can see not only your future to anticipate what hasn't happened to you yet, but you see yourself as an entire holistic time presence. And you see the meaning of everything you've ever experienced, from not only your birth in this body, but past and concurrent lifetimes, and how everything fits together as perfect puzzle pieces of causality. This happened because this happened. This happened because this happened. This happened because this happened, and everything makes sense. It takes a lot to get to that level of higher self perspective. But when you are able to get to that level of perspective, then you really do see and comprehend. Now you know why stuff happened to you. Now you have the answers to the big questions, like why did bad things happen to good people? Why did your ice cream fall off your ice cream cone when you were 3? Why did this bad thing happen to your friend over there? Why did your cat get run over by a car? Any of those things. You don't have the answers to that, and you make up all these philosophical answers at the intellectual level. But when you actually get to activate the higher faculties, then you see the answer to all of that, and you comprehend why those things happened. It is not a one-size-fits-all answer. It is actually unique to each person. The clothing that you wear in time is custom cut to you, and it doesn't fit for someone else. So someone else, the answer of why their cat got run over would be a different answer than why your cat got run over. Someone else, the answer of why they got whatever, ate a band sandwich and then they got a tummy ache is different than the tummy ache that you got. All of these things make sense for you. It is a unique and customized perspective. But when you achieve that unique customized perspective, that gives you the enzyme to be able to really unlock the nutrients from all of the life experiences that you've been through. And you start to see, you contextualize things very, very differently from that perspective. And from that recontextualization of your life experiences and achieving a different perspective and viewpoint, you are then energized. Instead of feeling friction of the trauma and the unhealed unpleasantness that you've been through, you move through time in a blissful nature because you see why things happened and what the necessity of those things happening was. But when you are in this moment now, please don't use any of that as a way of taking my work out of context to say like, oh, like Aurora says it's all going to be okay, therefore don't care or don't try or run over cats with your car. Like, no, don't do any of those things. Keep your body safe, be kind to others, do the best you can. Don't run over cats with your car. But sometimes bad things happen to us nonetheless. And then we have to look at the negative emotions that happen from that. And the way to get out of those negative emotions is to achieve the perspective of being able to comprehend why those things happened and why those events had a place in time. And that even includes larger things in human dynamics, such as the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or whatever, giant genocides, times when people were expelled from their homeland and starved, or even when babies are born as a stillbirth or the cord is wrapped around their neck. Hopefully I've been able to give you today a little bit of a increased perspective as you're starting to do your inner brain stretching routine and you're starting to get to be more expansive and flexible. You're like, well, You know something, if you know someone or had a child who died very early in infancy and you wonder, like, where is God and where is the validity in that and why did that happen? Of course, I'm not going to define your journey for you, but please know that that child, you were experiencing one of the timelines where they lived a very, very short, truncated existence, but that their consciousness didn't stop. It went on in order to eventually master how not to die in infancy and how to make it longer times. So the answers to deep questions have to do with comprehending that maybe your cat got run over by a car on your timeline, but on a different timeline, they did not, and they ran off and had a long, good life, but that you are not here to actually witness it. So you start to see and comprehend time in a very, very different way that gives you a different emotional truth as you are learning all of the different ways in which time is structured. So I'm going to wrap it up because it's not ideal recording on my phone like this, but just please know this is just the beginning of the semester, and we're going to delve even more deeply into this, into the mechanics of what time is shaped like and how that relates specifically to you and your journey, how that relates to death and the death journey. I have a whole teaching all about that. For people who are super new to the class, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I've already sent out in the email invite your homeworks. So please do your homeworks, because of course, even though I come here and I talk for 3 hours, sometimes I still don't even get through everything I want to get through. It's worth it to watch the recorded whiteboards. And even though they're from more than 10 years ago at this point, mostly what I've recorded there is a very universal level of truth that is applicable to you and your journey, no matter if it was 10 years ago or if it was today. But I always try to make these live lectures and presentations relevant to what we're experiencing today, because you're going through really something quite unprecedented on this planet in terms of your development and your ascension and your, like I said, your meta liberation, moving forward into levels of pure freedom. And so where we were 10 years ago is not the same as where we are today, but the pristine nature of the lesson still stands, especially when it comes to the basics of this language. Okay, so I'm going to emphasize more of this. This is the first time that we're going to learn about this, but just remember that these are the key things, like learning 1 + 1 = 2, what the colors of the rainbow represent, what these proportions represent. And you can even see, like, some of these paintings that I have back here. These paintings are the ultimate visual representation of truth that I can bring forward in this world, in terms of what all of these paintings are time maps, and being able to comprehend what time is shaped like, what the map of your life looks like, and how to navigate that map in order to stay alive and be eternal, and not to reach the dead ends or the cul-de-sacs that are on the membrane of death. Okay, so good job. Thank you for sticking with me, even though I had technological issues. And I will now end the recording. Let's see if I can effectively do that.